Hello, hello, hello. I created a travel planner this summer and I'm absolutely in love with it. I can't wait to show you guys. If you're anything like me and a bit of a planner, I think you're gonna love this. I'm even the type of person that on my Google account, I save like places I want to go, places I love, and all the good stuff. So this is kind of like taking that to the next level. And I scoured through the internet looking at different digital travel planner templates and paper templates, and then I kind of came up with a system that works for me, which I will walk you through. So regardless if you want to create a digital Notion planner yourself or check out how mine looks and potentially purchase it from my website, I think you will hopefully finish this video inspired to get more organized when it comes to planning your trips. And before I dig into the template, why is this a good idea, right? Why not just go on a trip and then forget about it? I find that sometimes I go to the same places over and over again. So for example, my top 3 places through the years that I've visited almost every year or sometimes multiple times of the year are New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. So if I can house all the places that I've been to in the past, it will allow me to quickly figure out maybe the hotels I want to visit again or the activities that I did several years ago that I want to revisit. So I don't know, for me that is a gold mine, and you can go as deep and really organized as you want to. And what I mean by that is for Chicago, that's where my family is. If I plan a trip to Chicago in my planner, 9 times out of 10 I'm just kind of doing a quick documentation of it, reminding myself that I'm going, and I'm not going to have much of an itinerary because I'm just hanging out with my family. Versus if I go someplace like Portland I've never been to, or Bora Bora, I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty and I'm gonna literally plan out what I intend to do every day. So by the time I get there, I can open up my Notion and then I can have a sense of what I want to do, what I've already paid for, and it just makes for a seamless trip, especially for those big trips, like if you're planning a big trip to Europe or some kind of island, whatever it might be. To have all of that information in the same place versus on pieces of paper, printouts, emails is really, really nice. So I hope that this gets kind of your juices flowing as far as really thinking and figuring out how maybe you can be more organized when it comes to travel planning. And this is just one way, but hopefully it inspires you to get more organized. All right, so I've linked to this template below, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer all of them. All right, let's get started. So let's dig into the travel planner. I'm so excited about this. This is all sample data just to give you an idea and sense of how you can use a travel planner. Now you can create your own custom template if you're familiar with Notion or you want to use this to learn how to use Notion. This is creating a travel planner from scratch is a great way to do that. If you do not have time to do that and you just want something that is ready to go that you can modify as necessary, please feel free to check out my travel planner. Link is below. Or you can go to dreamsplansideas.com and pick up the travel planner there. So let's dig into it. So this is the home page, if you will, for the travel planner. And of course, I have to have like a beautiful, bold image. This is Cape Town, South Africa. I get all of my images that I use usually from Unsplash, unless I take the pictures myself. And then you'll see that I have an icon here of just a map, and you can change that to anything you want. Usually I go to Giphy and then I go to stickers and then I find a sticker that I like, and know that I go to stickers because I don't want that background around the animation. So depending on what you like, you might not mind a background. So, customize this however you see fit. But here I've started us out with a big beautiful header image and also a sticker that works for me. And then next, I have the travel journal. And here is where lies the master database for the travel journal. So each time you get a trip idea, this is where you start. Is you go to new here, you can hit the new button or the fly away to go to trip or trip not tied to the itinerary database. And so trip not tied to itinerary database refers to the secondary database here. So this first database is just the trip, New York, Virginia, or however you want to name the trip. But when I go to new, what populates down below is either selecting the regular trip or the trip not tied to the itinerary database. Now, the reason why there is a difference is because if you decide to share your trip with others, you don't necessarily want them to get access to your itinerary database. And if all of your trips are tied to the main database, the only way to give someone access to the content below will also be giving them access to this database, which you don't want to do. And so if you're not sharing this, and maybe, if you're sharing it with a significant other, a partner, you don't care if they have access to your main database because you guys are going to be working on this together. And in that case, always select trip. But if you're sharing it with a friend, then I would suggest do trip not tied to the itinerary database. In that way, you don't have to share both the trip and your main itinerary database, which will make sense as I show you some examples of how to create something. So this one I keep clicking into is something that I just created. I'm just going to hit the trip here just so you can see what populates below. So I'm not going to get into this yet because I want to show you a few other things. So I'm just going to delete this for now in order to not cause any confusion. So that is my trip journal area, is where my databases lie. And then I have a bucket list. And I wanted my bucket list to be on its own page. It's all populated from that one master database with all the trips. But here I have a filter in place that says, hey, only if something is marked bucket list, add it below. And I'll get into more of that later as far as using tags in order to control your content. And then, of course, you can sort it in ascending or descending order. And there's other sorts too, which I'm not going to get into now. I'm going to go back to the main page of the travel planner, and the next area that I have is resources. This is where I've added resources that I often use. Also, if you want to create custom shareable maps, I've created a link to that. And I mentioned Unsplash and Giphy, and so I've linked those here too, so they're easily accessible, especially when planning trips. Now below, you will see all the trips that you create will be in this area, besides the bucket list, right? That has a special page. But you have planned trips and completed trips. All of this, same database, which I love. And it's all controlled by filters. All controlled by the filters. And you can add more views if you want, but here I'm just kind of keeping it simple, so as the planned trips increase, the boxes will increase too. And then last but not least, I just want to show you this area where the calendar is. And so each time you plan a trip and add dates, that trip will show below. All the itinerary items that also have dates will also show below too. So I think it's just really helpful to see everything that you have planned, especially if you tend to go on trips a lot. And for me, having the page at a narrow width for this works for me, but know that if things start to get complicated, you can always go up to the top right and then make the page full width instead. And that way you have more room for your calendar items. So now that's the beauty about Notion, is you have a lot of flexibility on how to display the data. And then last but not least, I've added a map below, and you could use this map however you want. Maybe it's the area where you live, or you want to use the area to pan and zoom to think about when your next trip is going to be. However you see fit, but it's always nice to have kind of a map that you can quickly access. All right, so how do you use this? Let me just quickly go into that. Fairly intuitive. On the travel journal page, you saw where I could go here and I can click a new trip, right? And create a new trip. Know that in the master itinerary database, you can actually do something new right here too. And the tags will allow you to connect it to the appropriate trip. So as you get familiar with this, you'll figure out kind of how you want to use it. But for me, for the most part, when I start a new trip, I will probably just go here and click new. And this is where, maybe I'll say that I want to go to Chicago, and I'll say I am going to Chicago the 21st to 21st. I'm going to include an end date and go to the 28th. There's some equations here that will show you trip length and days left. And then the status, I'm going to say put it in the planning status. And then for the image, I'll show you how you could quickly go to Unsplash, select Chicago, figure out what image you want to use. Let's say I want to use the train. I can then just download it. Once it's downloaded, here is the one I downloaded earlier. If the city isn't already listed, you can add it. And normally, I like this area to be uniform, so I'll go in and I'll change all of them to light gray. And this doesn't auto alphabetize, so as I add new tags in, usually I like to just alphabetize as I go. And in the template, I've added all the states for the US and country, United States. I can add any notes here. And if I'm not sure if I'm going to share this or not, I don't even have to start, incorporating my itinerary and so forth. I could just kind of like click out of here, and then you see it's kind of showing up in the planned tab. It also shows up in the main database. You see an icon isn't next to it yet because I haven't chosen a template to use yet. So I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to click on Chicago. I'm not sharing this with anyone, so I don't mind that my itinerary is going into the main database. And so it adds an icon here that I've included in the template. I have a trip notes and to-dos section. Here's a quick links section. So let's say, for example, you Googled what to do in Chicago. And you like this TripAdvisor page of where you should go in Chicago. You could then copy that link, put it over here in quick links, create a bookmark, and then that bookmark will show up. here to-dos, remember to connect with, Cuzzo. Here for the pre-trip checklist, I looked at a ton of different checklists from different digital checklists and printable ones. And so I've created this master list that works for me, but you can modify it however you want, delete, add, and so forth. And then there's a packing list. And also, I've modified this to include things that I think people would want, and you can also customize it how you see fit. And then if you're really hardcore, I included an outfit planner in here too. So I'm just going to hit back. And here, you can ignore this, but this is part of the template where I explain to people how to use the trip itinerary database, which is down below. And this is where you are going to add transportation, activities, accommodations, and so forth. This is an instance of the trip itinerary database, just showing another view of it. And then down below is a Google map that where you could put a link and you could put a custom map from My Maps, or you could just go to Google, for example, and I could search Chicago. I could go to Maps. I can hit Share, embed a map, copy HTML, embed map. And here you go. Ignore this. This is just instructions you can delete later, but it's just part of the template. I can make this full width and a little larger if I want to, which is nice. So you could do a lot of things here. If I wanted to share this page, I can click share, and then I go here to invite people. Now, this is where the main database and clicking the template that's not connected to the main database comes into play. This one is connected to the main database. So if I share it with someone that I haven't also shared the main database with, they won't see any of the content here because I haven't shared that other database. So that's why it's important, if you're going to share it and you don't want to share that other database, that you click not tied to database. And if you do want to share your itinerary database with someone, and remember, over time, this trip itinerary database is going to include all your information. So you really only want to share it with someone who you don't mind having all that information. But if I really wanted to, like, let's say I have, a partner and we're paying for everything. I don't mind them seeing costs. I don't mind them seeing past trips. I could go back to the main page and I can click view database, and it'll be a longer list as you add trips. And then I could then share this database with them. And then that way it'll populate in that other template that uses the shared database. But I find it just really easy to just click not tied to database if you know you're going to share the trip with a bunch of people. And so that's kind of like it. And here's the example, the New York example, where, I have more fake data in here, the Williamsburg Hotel, and you see, the Williamsburg Hotel in the gallery view because it has an image. So some things that I'll say to remember to do when you're filling this out, and I'm just going to go back to the Chicago database, and I'm going to make this full page just so you guys could more easily follow along. And I hit that top left arrow to do that. Right now, because this is part of the main database, it's showing everything that might be in a database because I haven't told it what to display. And the way I do that is I am going to find, let's say if I'm going to the Chicago Hilton. So I just copied the address. So I'm going to go new itinerary. And I'm going to put Chicago Hilton. I'm going to make it an accommodation. I don't really need the day. I'm going to say I need to book it. It's going to, the trip will, let's see, it'll start, what did I say, the 21st, and I think I said the trip will end the 28th. Let's say the estimated cost, I'm just making something up here, guys, is $1,500. I don't know the actual cost. I don't have a confirmation number because I haven't booked it. I can put the website here. I can copy the address. I'm going to add Chicago. And if I wanted to clean that up, I'm just showing you guys how I could do that. I'm selecting light gray. I am then going here. And there we go. I can make notes. After the trip is over, I can rate it. Let's say, I'm not sure if this is it, but just for the sake of using uncopyrighted images, I'm just going to put this as a fake image for now. Choose that as an image, and voila. Now, what's really important here is this last thing. Like, it's super, super duper important, and maybe I should put it up further so people really know that they need to do this, is I'm going to put Chicago 2022 as the tag. And let me show you how this helps. Is now, when I go to Trip Itinerary Database, I have this tag selection already here for you under Filters. So right here. And I'm going to select Chicago 22. And I don't have anything for transportation, but we know that I have something for accommodation. And I'm going to go to each one for this particular trip to make sure that whatever is displayed is the Chicago 22. Anything tagged with that. And I'm going to go to all. And keeping in mind, I am under the Chicago trip. And for the trip itinerary, I'm just making sure anything that shows in any of the database below, the shared database, is the only thing is the thing with the Chicago 22 tag. And so now I can continue to add to this trip itinerary. And as long as it's tagged with Chicago 22, which I've told it only to display Chicago 22, it'll show up here, which is nice. So I'm going to go back to the travel planner, and I'm going to go back to the travel journal, and I'm going to go to the main database, and you'll see the Chicago Hilton shows here in the overall database because it's a hive mind and it's all connected. Now, one more example I'll provide is one that's not connected to the database. So let's say I choose trip not connected, and let's say I'm going to go to Ocean City, going to go September 1st, and I'm going to choose collect end date and September 3rd. Status, planning, I'm going to go and get an Ocean City image. Then I'm going to, Ocean City is already here. And this is in Maryland. United States. And so I selected that this is not connected to the database in order to make sure that if I share this, I don't have to give them access to the other database. And I'm even here letting you know this is not connected to the primary database. Please rename it. So I can edit this database title and I might call it OC 2022. And let's say I want to go to the Aloft in Ocean City. I'm going to do new. And I'm going to do the itinerary not connected to the primary database. Just constantly reminding you of that. And I'm going to hit Aloft or type in Aloft accommodation. Let's say it's already reserved. What did I say? I'm going there September 1st through 3rd. Let's say it costs me $500. I don't know what the cost is. Let's say this is my confirmation number. I could put the website there. I could put the address. And then I could add, an image if I wanted to. But the most important thing, I would, even though this isn't connected, I would still tag it 2022, and I'll explain why in a second. So this is added. Oops, I clicked out of it. And you see it's showing up on the accommodation. In this case, it's going to show up because this database is disconnected. So I didn't even have to filter down and add a tag because I don't need to because it's not connected. But you might say like, well, Nache, why did you? And I'll explain that. But before I do, you see how I named this Ocean City 2022? For this instance of this database, let's say I wanted to just show the images below. I mean, of course, I have a gallery here, but sometimes I like to see things stacked where I am looking at a list view here and then maybe a gallery view here. So even though it's the same database, the information is stacked. I can select a data resource. I'm going to select Ocean City 22, and then I'm going to select gallery. Now, I didn't add an image to this, so nothing is showing up. But if I did add an image to it, it would show up. So, for example, and I am literally just going to select any image. It won't be of the Aloft. I'm just going to select that for the heck of it. We all know that's not the Aloft. But just to show you, I keep closing out. That then that image would show below. And also, just in case you don't know this, like let's say if an image isn't showing right, you could always click this reposition and move it around so it could look better. Just a little trick. And so you'll see if I go back to the main itinerary, Aloft doesn't show here. And that's because it's not connected. Now, what I will tell you is that if you select, let's say you've shared this trip, the trip is over, and you're no longer going to share the trip with whoever you were sharing it with because it's done, maybe they're not really normally a Notion person, whatever. There's no need to share it anymore. You can easily highlight all the different items in a database, and you can right click and you can go move to, and you can move it to the other database. So you would just need to look up travel itinerary. And I have a bunch because I'm experimenting with a lot right now. So let's see if I choose the right one. So I said move it there. And if I go to this travel journal, is it there? It is not. Oh, yes, it is there. So you'll see it right here because I've now move this to the itinerary. Now, why you might ask, well, why would I want to do that? Well, if you have a disconnected database because you're sharing it with someone else, but you still want to house that information so you might be able to look for it and discover it later in your main database, then that is a good reason to later move it to your main database. So if you ever go to Ocean City or wherever again, you have this repository of all the things that you've done. You have a repository of all the accommodation activities and transportation that you've gone to. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please put questions down below. But that's it. I feel like that was maybe a little longer than I anticipated. The only thing that I realized that I forgot to mention is you can control what you see right here. So you see Ocean City, it's telling me countdown 46 days. And it also kind of shows the tag of the city tag. But if you go here to the three little dots next to new, that's where you can show the properties that you want displayed here by simply clicking the icon on and off. And so that's just another way to control the content. But anyway, I hope you are inspired to create your own travel planner, or, at the very least, please pick up my travel planner and just kind of play around with it, use it to learn Notion and customize it in order to fit your needs. But I love my own personal one because it's where I can keep everything in one place. So hopefully this was helpful to you, and thank you.